Hello folks, how are we doing? Christmas is over, well at least Christmas Day is over, the rest of the Christmas period is still well and truly underway. I hope you're having a really good time and that you are staying sane if you're in work, and if you are around your family, I also hope you're staying sane. Today, we are doing some more 40k lore. As we always do on a Tuesday and a Thursday, I've just realised that most of the time that I do these videos, it works out into a 3,500 word essay, and if you'd have told me I was doing that as part of my living a few years ago, I would have tried to jump off the nearest bridge, but there we go. Today we are covering the Night Lords, which is one of my favourite legions in terms of their actual lore, and it's actually one of the most challenging legions for me to talk about, in that because I like a lot of the things that they discuss. I like the way that they're treated in a lot of the ways. But I found out in my research that I only really like one faction, one part of the Night Lord's lore, and that it's all-encompassing. Let's go into it, shall we? Another Chaos Force, saved by the writing of Aaron Dembski-Bowden, it seems. Whilst he loves chaos, any time he takes aim at the Imperium in his novels, they do come across as weak and ineffective. A clear sign of writers who like certain armies being unable to bring that same creative power to armies that they are not fans of. Still, the Night Lords were little known beyond Jago Sevatarian in the Horus Heresy before this time. Not often in Warhammer 40,000 does a faction live up to its name, and be so unabashed in terms of its malice and outright evil nature. I prefer to look at the Night Lord simply as fire, though. Is it evil simply because it burns? In this video, we are going to look, as we always do, at what makes them tick, what makes them stick, and what I would change in some nightmare future that I was given the power to do so. One that I'm sure you all dread. Let's do the good first, shall we, as we always do. The Night Lords are a legion with some really important themes threaded through their story that at first glance may go unnoticed. Yes, they look comically evil. A legion such as this, based on psychological warfare, ambush and fear, has a tendency to fall into satire entirely. The Night Lords bring a dark mirror to other legions, however, and they deal with a lot of mental health themes that I feel are not explored enough in 40k, considering just how many broken individuals find the setting comforting and fascinating. I think the Night Lords, ironically, do a great job in bridging this gap and extending a hand to those who feel marginalised, depressed, and like they don't belong. Well, at least they do now, anyway. It's time to talk about that trilogy of novels. The trilogy that kickstarted the career of ADB. If you ask me what should a Horus Heresy book look like, imagine the Night Lords books by ADB, imagine they were set in the Horus Heresy, and have him write about the Heresy era Night Lords. That is what the Horus Heresy would look like to me. Each legion gets 1 or 2 books to round out their arcs as they head towards the Siege of Terror or Annihilation, with 5 or 6 set-piece books showing the great battles of the war. In a sense, the ADB trilogy is the perfect Traitor Legion compendium for what a Chaos War band looks like when it is on the move on a day-to-day basis. It is rare that to pinpoint a certain section of books as a positive for a legion, but the trilogy is inescapable, as without it the Night Lords simply, in my opinion, have no real arc. That's crazy, right? They literally have no real arc without these books. Anyway, I firmly believe their lackluster portrayal in the Horus Heresy is down to these books being so good and set in the 41st millennium. The Night Lords show what happens when a legion, with the Blood Angel's foresight, at least Sanguinius's foresight, falls to a darker edge. I believe no world is beyond a Primarch's touch in reality. As such, I believe Kurz to be at least partially mentally broken before he even lands on Nostramo. Because if he is of his right mind, Nostramo will become a better place for him being there. Newsflash, it does not. This does question the Emperor's motives for creating a Primarch this way. Perhaps the design of the Night Lords as fearmongers meant that their Primarch had to be unstable to cope with the mental gymnastics needed to lead such an army of devils. Whatever the case may be, Kurz is a terrifying character when read about by anybody but Games Workshop. Yes, the community is a positive for the Night Lords. Like, you guys as a whole are a positive for the Night Lords. Listen to any lore video on the Night Lords and you will come across some gut-wrenching and chilling episodes. From Voldemort's near-maniacal gibbering as a Night Lord's Marine, showing their sadism, to Amber King showing the almost childlike simplistic black and white nature of Conrad Kurz's point of view, to Oculus Imperia making you fear a legion even as he dryly lists off their achievements as a historian of the Imperium at large. If you want to know about the Night Lords beyond the trilogy of books, YouTube really has brought the best out in them. And that's another reason why I think, in all honesty, the Night Lords and the Horus Heresy are treated a lot more meme-ish than they are in other places. The Night Lords are almost an inversion of every other legion, in more ways than one. I think it's a very elegant way, and it's happened quite by accident. Because the Night Lords are a dark mirror to things like the Blood Angels and other legions that are in the Horus Heresy, right? But they're also a dark mirror to the normal way the Horus Heresy goes about its lore. I would say the lore of the Horus Heresy, when I write to change things, I very rarely change the Horus Heresy part of these videos. Have you noticed that? I always change the 40k part, because the 40k part is where it starts to become memeified and fall apart. Because of Aaron Dembski-Bowden's books, however, the Night Lords are an inversion of this. Instead, the 40k books are where the Legion really finds its legs in it from a narrative standpoint, and the Horus Heresy is where we have this really lackluster, memey, stupid Legion that doesn't really have any reason to exist apart from Jago Sevatarian, right? It really is a weird inverse of the way that we look at things, but I also think writers just sort of gave up on the Night Lords and the Horus Heresy after ADB's books came out. I honestly think they looked at that trilogy and went, meh, we can't do that, and they just moved on. They went, okay, we can't do that. You know, no Horus Heresy book's going to be better than that, so we're not even going to try and challenge that. The Night Lords will appear in other books, because they do, but they very rarely get their other books. I don't think the Night Lords actually have their own Horus Heresy books. They appear in a lot of them, you know, as the mustache-twirling bad guys who like causing fear, and that's the meme that they play into. But I don't think they actually have their own books. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I might have missed that out, though. Let's look at the mental side of the Legion. They deal with their mental health terribly, hating inwardly and struggling to find any purpose at all in life. When Talos Valkorion finally does find a purpose in his own series of books, it's too late, and the conclusions he comes to are similarly dark. Each and every Legion I come across is perhaps not beyond saving, right? Perhaps it's not beyond saving. Each and every single Legion that we come across has that little glimpse of something that could be better going forwards. The Night Lords, for the most part, are beyond redemption. I know that sounds weird, because I'm a kind of writer who never does that. I never normally put a Legion just so far beyond redemption and coming back. But let's not get it confused. I don't mean redemption in the fact that they can be considered good guys, but redemption internally into something better, right? They're too far gone internally. I believe they're too far gone, and to be honest, I think this is a fantastic choice in terms of their lore. Too often we are shown the hidden nobility in the Chaos Warbands and what they could have been. I cannot help but feel the Night Lords are fulfilling their exact purpose, but are doing so with no Imperial oversight now. Their mere existence lets me believe that the Emperor did not plan the Horus Heresy, as he actively recalls them back for chastisement at one point after they destroy Nostramo. A clear sign that things were occurring in the Great Crusade that he did not plan for. Either that, or the Emperor is a moron, and I wouldn't put it past the writing team to explain it away in that way. Jago Sevatarian is also a huge plus for the Night Lords, an arrogant warrior who has several mental breaks. Instead of succumbing to them forever, however, he seems to embody the true purpose of his Legion, the Judges of the Imperium, as in 40k Judge Dredd. The imperial law is all to him, and the unwritten laws of common decency and honour are similarly all to Jago Sevatarian. He is unquestionably a prick of the highest order. He does some really evil things in the name of his beliefs, but I think the Night Lords as a legion are at their strongest when they embody this lawful evil attitude of doing what must be done to keep the Imperium together. Not only is Jago a true warrior and able to stand up to others in the legions in a way that is sorely lacking within the Night Lords, because most of them are kind of weak in the Horus Heresy for some reason, he is the exemplar of this idea who, if the law is read into correctly, may even end up joining either the Grey Knights or doing something else on the Loyalist side as we move forwards in time, right? He may actually find redemption and come back into the light, quote unquote, using his inner darkness to combat the big bads of the galaxy. I really wish that we see more of Jago Sevatarian going forward and that he doesn't just like disappear into the night. That's one thing that I think ADB left in his own trilogy. He left that open-ended because he wants somebody else to go and take Jago and do something with him. I think it's a crime that he hasn't really been able to do anything else in the lore, apart from have one redeeming moment that hints to the true man underneath the mask towards the end of his story in the Horus Heresy, and then we don't hear from him again. Again, the Horus Heresy doing the Night Lords dirty. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Regardless, the Night Lords being so beyond saving makes them more valuable to me. They are not corrupted from an external source like the other big boys of Chaos are. Instead, they are naturally corrupted from within by themselves and their nature. They were always a tinderbox ready to be set alight. Conrad Kurz did nothing to slow that down. That does lead to some bad things about the Legion though. So the bad. I'm just gonna say it. Who the fuck had the idea to put criminals, sadists, and mentally broken blokes in power armor and make them immortal? Seriously, whose idea was that? I am surprised it took so long for Kurz to go off the rails and start blowing up planets with the toys he had at his disposal. Conrad Kurz had the power of Exterminatus at his very fingertips for years and never used them. Looking at his nature and the nature of his legion, the fact that they restrained themselves for so long is a real victory in itself. The question remains, though, whose idea were the Night Lords? They do not make any sense from a logical lore perspective. And I can't say that about many other legions, to be honest with you. Other legions have part of their lore that I don't like. The Night Lords literally make no sense. They literally make absolutely no sense whatsoever. Look what the Ultramarines do to Monarchia, the Wordbearer city, simply because the Emperor tells them to. Any legion is capable of terrifying the populace of any world into submission. World Eaters, anyone? Why do we even need something as depraved and uncontrollable as the Night Lords? They make no sense at a base level. The World Eaters were the Warhounds before the arrival of Angron, but were still capable, like the Dusk Raiders, the Death Guard, of annihilating those who did not submit in a timely fashion or who rebelled against the Imperial rule, right? Quite frankly, all the legions were doing what the Night Lord's job is, better than the Night Lords long before they even arrived on the galactic scene. So what was the point of them in the lore? From a writing standpoint, I get it. They're really fun and hitting some interesting themes. From an Imperium standpoint, though, a logical standpoint, what? Nonsense Legion doing nonsense things in a way that makes everybody involved in their creation look like an absolute wazzock. Their one-dimensional nature can sometimes mean that without the ADB books, the Night Lords can come across as stupid evil, doing dastardly things because the plot demands they do these things so that the good boys in blue have something to fight against. This is a key weakness of any lore that requires a certain series of books to even function as a legion at all. Whilst the Black Legion had decades of build-up to their own trilogy of books to round off the edges, the Night Lords had simply, hey, they're evil. They like causing fear, and Conrad Kurz is mental. Haha! Without the ADB books, the Night Lords are almost unapproachable as relatable, even with Jago being in the Horus Heresy. As far as weaknesses go, the Night Lords for me only really have that one. But it's such a big one, it's such a huge one, that it kind of breaks the Legion in the Horus Heresy, and means that they shouldn't exist. How crazy is that? One of my favourite legions, and I'm outright saying they shouldn't exist. That's amazing. That's ridiculous, right? Anyway, what would I change? And here's where we get into the interesting part of the video that I know a lot of you like to rage about. But anyway, what would I change? In the Horus Heresy? Well, if we're sticking with what we're doing for the ADB books, not much, to be honest. You know? I think the Night Lords work well for what they are, if you want them to be this one-dimensional force. But, when writing this, I decided to be brave here. I am wiping the Night Lords clean. That's right, a complete workback of their lore before the ADB books. In my lore, the ADB books occur just as they are, but the Horus Heresy before this is changed completely for the Night Lords. We got the Night Lords, they no longer exist in canon as they are. Done. They don't exist. The ADB books exist, right? They exist. But I'm going to write what happens to the Night Lords all the way up until those books in a way that makes more sense. Or I'm going to give it a go anyway. So, in the Horus Heresy, or just before, in the Great Crusade, instead of being really into causing fear, the original plan for the Night Lords was for them to be the chamber militant of the Inquisition. Yeah. Something that in my lore, the Emperor was always going to set up after the Great Crusade. They'd just be more geared towards the imperial truth rather than religion, you know? They would seek out not just those going against the imperial truth, but also against demons that the Emperor knew existed. In essence, they were supposed to be the first Grey Knights. Or they were supposed to be proto-Grey Knights. They were supposed to be the first guys who could really go out there and deal with demonic incursions, things like that. This is the reason for the rampant psychic powers within the Legion and the near-prognosticar levels of precognitive ability that they show, right? So a lot of people Night Lords in the Legion in the actual lore have this ability to see where things are going to happen and see things in the future, but it's really like warped and weird, right? Well, in this, it's actually quite controllable. Their Legion was built to see things into the future and to strike at threats before they happen. This is the reason for... I'm going to read that again. This is the reason for the rampant psychic powers within the Legion and the near-prognosticar levels of precognitive ability that they show. They are built to seek out where threats are coming and act accordingly. Sort of like Minority Report, but in 40k. They take on darker themes to scare others into obedience, and they digest the laws of the new Imperium with a near-religious zeal. Everything to them is completely black and white. Ironically, I would take the red thirst from the Blood Angels and put it here if I were allowed to do so, because it gives them sort of a shameful truth to their character. But we will leave it with the Blood Angels for now. I'm not gonna do that, but I'm just saying if I had the opportunity to rewrite everything, I would probably do that. I'd take the red thirst away from the Blood Angels, it's too on the nose, and I'd give it to the Night Lords instead. Anyway. The Emperor does not... repeat, does not find Conrad Kurz. He is the only Primarch the Emperor does not find on his own, right? Instead, the Night Lords find Conrad Kurz, using their abilities to sense him and speak with him long before ever actually meeting him. This creates a really strong bond between the Night Lords and their Primarch years before they even set eyes on him. Instead of hating his sons, Kurz is welcomed and sees them as a pure and righteous thing. His own world is just as it is in the current lore, right? So we have our beautiful, lovely, big piece of Nostromo. It's still there, it's still as is in the lore, right? Kurz is a mentally broken man from his efforts to unite the world, however. This is because the world of Nostromo was actually ruled by Dark Eldar before Kurz landed on the planet and led an uprising against them. Since being crowned king, he has brought totalitarian law and order to the streets through fear. Okay? That's who Curse is. Under Curse, the Night Lords have become even more black and white. They actively distrust the other legions and fall more and more into a morally grey area as the Great Crusade draws to a close. The straws that break the camel's back of the Night Lords are twofold. Number one, Nostromo rebels against the Imperium, causing great shame for the Legion. This is basically a legion of policemen, right? Who they can't keep their own house in order. This drives them wild. Number two, the Legion, as a whole, sees the Horus Heresy coming a year before it kicks off. But their messages to the Emperor are delayed within the warp, and eventually they head to Nostromo. So, this is now a really paranoid Legion who are seeing enemies everywhere. They are literally like, what is going on? The Horus Heresy is on the way. Our visions always come true. Horus has betrayed the Imperium. What the fuck? What the fuck? What the fuck? They're going mental, right? They go back and they destroy Nostromo. They annihilate the world. They think this is just penance for rejecting this second chance that the world was offered. And the Legion tries to head to Terra to defend the Imperium and ask the Emperor for forgiveness for destroying their own world. Because in this lore, they're still loyal. They are thrown way off course within the warp, however, and when they arrive in real space again, they are set upon by the Dark Angels and Ultramarines, who are sure Curse has sided with Horus. You see, 3 years have passed outside of the warp, whilst only months have passed for the Night Lords. No one has seen anything of the Night Lords other than their Marines being present at the drop site massacre. This is very important. It turns out those Marines who were traitors were actually Alpha Legion, who were wearing the colours of the Night Lords to sow the seeds of dissension within the Imperium, right? In fact, I would have the Alpha Legion be at the drop site massacre, but they're all dressed in the colours of the other legions. So like they're dressed as like, you know, most of them are dressed as Night Lords. There are a few who are dressed as like, you know, White Scars. So all of the people, all of that distrust that happens, right? All of the distrust that happens within the Imperium, where we don't know what the White Scars are doing, whether they're loyal or whatever, right? That's because there were certain people, the Alpha Legion, at the drop site massacre wearing their colours fighting the loyalists. So it seeds this, oh my god, what's going on? The Night Lords are the first one of those legions to reappear on the galactic stage. And so, of course, the loyalists turn on them straight away. And they're like, yeah, these guys, fuck these guys, kill them all, right? In my lore, the White Scars are kind of like this, but they come back into the Imperial fold a bit later on, when everyone realises, oh, we were hoodwinked, sort of a thing, you know? Anyway, let's get on with it, shall we? The Night Lords, being black and white, see this attack on their person, regardless of its reasons, as high treason, and fight their way clear of both legions. They were attacked, however, by two massive legions. The Dark Angels and the Ultramarines are, you know, so massive that they break the Night Lords as a force. They literally, the Night Lords do very well. They fight off the attack, which is a miracle in itself, and shows the power of the Night Lords. But they are broken, right? The Night Lords scatter into different warbands, seeking out enemies of the Imperium and the Imperial truth wherever they find them. The problem is, without the guiding hand of their Primarch, a lot of them are starting to confuse friend and foe. Before the end of the heresy, the Night Lords are seen attacking both sides as traitors to the Emperor's cause, hated by both, wanted by neither. Conrad Kurz, eventually, finds Magnus the Red through his own psychic powers, who relays the story of the heresy so far to the Night Haunter. So, Conrad's mind is breaking, and Magnus actually sees a kindred spirit in this other psyker and starts to mend his mind back together from afar. The two eventually come together, and they do a bit of crying and hugging and, like, you know, brotherly stuff, like, oh my god, what's going on, you know, like, the whole thing's falling apart. Like we need to go and see Father, we need to go and see the Emperor and make sure he's okay and tell him that this isn't us, like, we're not the traitors here, right? So, Conrad goes with Magnus to Terra. Just as Magnus goes to the Emperor in the real lore, in this setting, Conrad goes with him. and stands before him to beg his forgiveness. So they stand before the Emperor to beg his forgiveness. The Emperor tells Kurz that he has fallen far from his allotted role, which is pretty terrible to hear. But not all is lost for the two Primarchs. Dawn and Vulcan stand to either side of the Emperor, looking at their two brothers as the Emperor makes his judgment. So in this setting as well, Dawn is with Vulcan, talking to these two traitor Primarchs, because there's no way the Emperor will be left alone with two traitor Primarchs of this level of power. Both Magnus and Kurz are to abandon their legions and take up the leadership of two new chapters. Okay? One, the Grey Knights, Magnus, and one, the Black Shields, Kurz. Now, the Black Shields in this setting are eventually what the Death Watch and Sisters of Battle become, but combined together. Okay? Whereas in this setting, of course, the Black Shields never come to being because Kurz rejects the offer. And so the Black Shields become the Death Watch and the Sisters of Battle, two completely separate forces eventually. Anyway, neither the Grey Knights or Black Shields are named at this time, of course, because we like to keep things nice and, ooh, what does he mean when he says that, you know? Both Primarchs reject this proposal. Both love their sons and refuse to give them up. The true irony is that the very human connection between Kurz and his sons throws him down the path to damnation. Magnus and Dawn fight to a standstill before Magnus creates a warp tear for their escape. Kurz beats Vulcan unconscious, and the two fall through the gate together. Now mentally broken completely, and without Magnus's guidance, Kurz allows his sons to pick their own leaders amongst themselves and leave him to his fate, passing the mantle of leadership to his chosen few, with a mandate to now fight only for each other and no one else. No Imperium, chaos, nothing but themselves. That is the only thing, that's the last order he gives his sons. Fight for yourselves, fight for each other, and fight for what the Imperium was supposed to be. That's it. Kurz wakes up Vulcan and demands that the two duel, and demands that Vulcan end his suffering. We see the duel, but not the outcome, as the Night Haunter's ship detonates in the void to make sure a finality to the duel in case Vulcan can't kill him. Vulcan is found years later floating through the void. Whether he landed the killing blow on his cursed brother, however, he does not remember. This leaves the door open for a Kurz return later on if you want, and gives the evil nature, at times, of the Night Lords some much needed clarity. Some of them can fall to chaos in their sheer grief for what's happened, becoming traitor warbands whose only loyalty is to each other. Others can remain loyal, but renegade chapters. The Night Lords is a tragic legion of broken paragons of the Imperial truth, rather than a legion of rapists and murderers. A legion whose purpose was corrupted by the very war that, by their nature, they were supposed to prevent. Okay? There is another part to the lore that I want to discuss that I think would be very, very, very cool if it did happen, right? And that is Decimus. Decimus is a character who comes into being at the end of the ADB trilogy, right? And he is very much hinted as the saving grace of the Night Lords, in that he has the gene seed of Talus Valkorium within him, and supposedly he is the offspring of two human characters in that trilogy, one being a psyker, a navigator, and one being a slave. So I would have Decimus, right, be this ultra powerful young marine with an amazing precognitive ability. The only problem is, in the books, he says, with his precognition, he says Abaddon's going to win the war against the Imperium, but that a lot of Night Lords are going to die in the process. I would change that. I would have Decimus see that Abaddon eventually is going to lose, because he falls into the trap of an empire builder and essentially becomes Guilliman 2.0, and Decimus sees that as a failure, right? Decimus is the pure heart of his legion. He sees the entire board needing to be wiped clean, and so he now takes his warband and starts building up his own forces to kill Abaddon the Despoiler, to kill Huron Blackheart, to kill Guilliman, to kill them all. Kill them all. Wipe the slate clean, because the Emperor's coming back. Decimus has seen the Emperor come back in his visions. He's seen him come back, which is like, hinting at my 10th edition thing that I was going to do, right? He's seen him coming back, and he wants to wipe the slate clean for him. So, we have this true neutral Chaos Marine in Decimus, a Night Lord, going after everybody, just as his father wanted. His father is loyal to the Emperor. He's loyal to the Imperial truth, and so is Decimus. He says, no, we've lost sight of ourselves. We've lost sight of what we are. I'm bringing us back to what we are. I'm uniting the Legion again. I'm going around. I'm uniting the Night Lords. We are the Night Lords once again. We're not these disparate war bands. If you're too far gone, I will take your head. Just as I'm going to take Abaddon's, I'm going to try and kill every traitor Primarch that I can. We are wiping the slate clean. We are clearing the board for the Emperor. That is what I'm going to do. Those are the changes that I would make to the Night Lord's lore. What do you guys think? This is going to be quite a controversial one, I think, rather than any of the other ones, because I literally wiped the slate clean here and did something from scratch. But I do think that it really does lean into the ADB books, because if you as a Broken Legion, because the Night Lords in the ADB books, while some of them are quite far gone, other ones are quite, shall we say, honourable, right? They're evil as fuck, but they're honourable, right? They're really honourable. And I would have the Night Lords in this be just as evil as they were in the Horus Heresy, but they are lawful evil. They are very lawful. So, whilst I didn't touch on any of the raping and pillaging and annihilating that they do in the real setting, they still do that in this setting, right? They're just much more on the lawful evil side of evil. They're not stupid. They are loyal to the Imperium, but they're a dark mirror of what the Imperium is going to become later on. They link in together like poetry. It rhymes, as George Lucas is fond to say. Anyway, love you all a long time. Let me know what you think of that, and if you hate it, you probably do, because, even I'm having second thoughts about it, but I like the Night Lords. I just think that their core, what they are at their core, doesn't work. So, that's what I would do with them. Love you all a long time. I will see you tomorrow for some more Hobby Nightmares. Have a good one. See you later, guys. Bye.